Just mentioned to us, he's been here 25 years. All in human resources?
No, I did other stuff.
Okay, no, I'll let you talk about that. So please let's give him a nice welcome.
Excuse my chair. Yeah, I played first chair and trombone in high school, so that's what I was asking about music. But I always loved piano, and I did it when I was little, and I haven't played in years because you get sort of away from it. You do other stuff. But I enjoyed it. I love it now. Well, I went to school at Morehouse College in Atlanta. It's a private men's college. Same school that that Dr. King went to. And I said Martin because he was there when I was there, because I'm that old. So, so I remember working with Dr. King and the group in Atlanta in the early 60s. But Morehouse is a small private school for males, and then across the street is a private school for females, Spelman, and they're both in Atlanta. Great environment. And so when I got there from high school, I played in the band at Morehouse, and also I was in the Vorse Choir. Do you know Vorse Choir? You don't have that anymore, probably. It's speaking, with different voices in different parts. It was great. It was a great experience. And also the Glee Club, at the Morehouse Glee Club, that travels all over the world, did then and does now. So I had really great introduction to music, but I wasn't good. I mean, I didn't think I was good, and I wasn't so passionate about it. So I moved on to other stuff. So went to law school, and became a lawyer, and then played around that for a while. Then I came up here and started working with the teachers union. So I got a chance to help them shape how they bargain. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Bargaining contracts. I was just getting to your favorite subject.
Oh, yes. Contract
bargaining, right? And did that for a dozen years, and then I got called here to do this job in Fairbanks. And so my kids graduated from school in North Pole now it's been 20 years, I guess, in 88 and 90. So when did you guys start school?
Here I started in 08.
Really?
Fall of 2008.
No. Real school, first grade.
First grade?
Right.
Kindergarten was 95. So
95, so in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
That's sort of normal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's good to see you.
Finished in 92.
Did you finish in 92? Wow. It's, well, music is still great, and there's still opportunities. This year in the district, and I'm the HR director for the school district, and I've been doing that since '04. It's been a great job. I'm retiring at the end of this month, and so I'm looking forward to doing something else. But while I was there, it gave me a chance to sort of help shape some things, get some programs, and when you're in charge, you can sort of start things and move them along, assuming that you get proper funding and incorporation. So we did some initiative things to get people involved. One of the things I was working with, first with you, I guess, with a young student at Barnett. Yeah. And so then I was, because artists, musicians, and people in art are quite different from my perspective than folks in English and math and what have you. It's just a different makeup, and you're probably called to do these jobs in music. But it's a vital part of what we do in the school district, and it starts very, very young, doesn't it? And there's a commitment along the way to continue that. And we've had budget cuts in the last couple of 3 years, but the music has stayed there. And so in this community, there's a strong commitment to start music early and nourish it all the way up, and that's one reason. Maybe because you're here, you're involved in it. This year in the school district is a good year for music, actually. In my 9 years at the district, we have had 1 or 2 music jobs over the last period. This year we have 5. 5 elementary music positions, which is unheard of. Now next year, when you're ready to start teaching, but but there are 5 this year, and people are now starting to retire, and the music, the people in our music area have been there for years, and so there'll be opportunities. But I'm curious to know what your plans are around the world. Let me hear what you're planning to do with your music.
Ideally, I'd like to teach high school, and I would like to teach in some sort of an underprivileged community somewhere.
So you're going to stay here in the state, do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what I'm going to do. My family all recently moved down to the state, so I may like to get closer to them, but I haven't really decided yet.
And tell me your name, too, as you go around. I'm sorry.
I'm Chelsea.
I don't know your name.
I'm Marshall, and I want to do elementary. Probably stay in Alaska.
Good year.
I'm Megan. I want to actually teach middle school music, and I'm not sure what I'm doing.
So in middle school music, what is it? Is it starting to specialize in the instruments now at that point, or is it?
Yeah.
Or do you? And could you just start then? Even if I was a student, because I just started in 7th grade.
I'm Jared. Hoping to stay in Alaska probably. I'm not sure what grade I want. This is my first year here, so came in with the idea to teach high school, and more and more I'm looking at it maybe elementary. So we'll see what happens.
All right. My name is Trevor. After this degree, I'm looking to do a grad degree in composition, and so I'm thinking about either doing lessons privately, but also I would like to teach either elementary or secondary school at some point, maybe in between or afterwards even.
My name is Caitlin. I want to teach young kids. Definitely stay in Alaska. I was considering teaching in the bush somewhere, but I haven't fully considered it.
Good.
Sorry,
Hi.
I'm John. I apologize for coming in late.
No problem, John. Hi.
Thank you. After this, I'd like to go to graduate school and outside the state and see what there is to see out there. I wouldn't mind coming back and teaching in state or out of state. So I haven't really decided on the grade either.
So did you grow up here?
Yeah, most of my life was here.
Okay, good.
I'm Franz. I'm looking at graduate studies after this year. I'll be student teaching involved, a lot of us. Graduate studies and performance, and then may or may not go back to state. Hopefully will, and we'll teach, but I'm not decided yet.
I'm Ellen. I would like to leave the state after I graduate and explore outside of Alaska, possibly teaching. I haven't decided which grade I want. I'm pretty open as far as elementary or high school. To me, I just think it's just if I get a job is the most important thing for me. And I have a feeling I'll end up back in Alaska sometime.
It's a great place to be. One of the advantages of being here a long time is, for me, is I had a chance to sort of do the whole state. When I was working for NEA Alaska, I was based out of Anchorage, but my regions were everywhere. Kodiak, the Pribilofs, Northwest Arctic, Angoon, so that sort of puts you all over the state. And I had a chance to see what the school districts were like. And Fairbanks is absolutely one of the best school districts in the state. And not just because I'm here and my kids are here, but I think it's because there's a commitment to resources in the right places for the right things. And that's what I see going on here even now, even though resources are somewhat down. The commitment in class. We had, back in '07, we had 3 kids from Atlanta. They were at school at Clark Atlanta University, come here to do their practice teaching. Neither of the 3 was in music, but they were elementary education. So they came here. They were at Hunter and Arctic Light, 2 and one was in the other school. And the first thing, and they had been doing sort of interning in the Atlanta public schools. And the first thing they said when they arrived was, okay, where is the counter for the paper that you get issued. You know, because in their schools they have a little key, and you get 300 sheets a year or something like that. You know, it's unheard of here. We don't have those sort of restrictions. At least we haven't had them. And so they were impressed with how the schools ran here. So it's a very, very good place to be, especially if you want to be a teacher. Now, salaries are competitive, I think. You're not going to be wealthy being a teacher. You might get wealthy writing, or something, but not being a teacher. We start teachers off in the mid-40s and top out at near 90. And that's 15 steps, and how many across? Young, 18, masters, 18, 36. There's 7 across, and so you increase as you go across the scale, getting more degrees of courses, and also getting more years. So the average teacher in Fairbanks is at 68,000. I think that's what we use as an average. You know, which is not a fortune, but certainly you can manage with that kind of resource. So, how do you get in? Tell me, let's see, who did I pick up you?
To a school that you're asking?
How you get into the system?
I think sometimes it depends on what's open that you might have to take. Like if I wanted to do elementary, but there wasn't an elementary position open, I would have to maybe start in high school or something. Or I guess just talking around to people a lot.
Good. Well, we are a school district, and of course I prepared a test for you.
You know all the answers.
Let me dig this out. Let me dig this out. You don't have to take it, but I'll say what you just have one. It's the basic test, so you won't have to spend a lot of time. We want you to look at it, and we can talk about it. So where are you at? Crawford. Yes. I was there the other night when you were.
We were there right before I just made such an impression.
Exactly. Okay.
Either good or bad.
So, first question. Who wants to take it? Bronze. Got you.
The most important preparations I can make for a job interview is to get plenty of rest, know my content materials, and dress appropriately.
True or false?
True.
Now, you have to remember that I'm a lawyer, and I wrote these questions. So they're probably not going to be that simple, are they? Right. So what else do you, yes, that's true, of course, but what else? What else do you think what's important as far as preparations?
More than just content material, yeah, knowing the school.
Yeah, knowing the schools, critical. What else? Knowing the programs,
Knowing the curriculum.
And the curriculum. And you can find all that stuff where now?
On the internet.
No, absolutely, yeah. So there's no excuse going to Crawford or Ben Eielson or Lathrop and not know what's happening in that particular school, because that's what interviewers are going to want to know. So what do you know about our program at X, right? And if you don't know anything, if you start talking generalities, then there comes the, not the check marks, but the X marks. What else would be important to you? Being on time would be critical. I mean, you chuckle, but people come late to interview.
Maybe turning off your cell phone.
Turning off your cell phone would be a good idea.
Knowing your interviewers.
Having some idea if they'll let you know that.
Yeah.
Especially for women, no dangling stuff that makes noise. Yeah. I was in an interview once, and these teachers, these were teachers, seasoned teachers who were applying to be in the principal training that the district has, and they all were brilliant and established and had good reputations. But when they came to the interview, they were particularly nervous, and one of them had beads. They were like Mardi Gras beads, and she kept working with them, and so we couldn't hear her answers. So when the interview was over, we were talking about how they presented themselves and the answers, and half of the committee could not hear her because they were distracted. So you don't want people interviewing to be distracted by what you're doing. What I do when I'm talking with people is I do my nails like this, and I know, and I do it now, if I didn't have something in my hand, and I notice people watching my fingers, and I thought, oh my God, I'm distracting them. They can't hear what I'm saying because they're not paying attention either. So that's important. And I don't know if I have a question like that down there. And let me say, and I'll say this several times, you're always interviewing, okay? Even now. Because when you come to the school district to get a job, it's of course how well you've done here, and it's of course how well you do an interview, but it's also of course in our community how you connect. And so if you are unfriendly, unapproachable, don't have a great smile, or never engage people, that counts as well. Doesn't count as high as being the opposite of what I just said. So just think, every time you meet someone, they are because we live in a small town, and there's no getting away from that. Everybody interacts and knows everybody else, especially at the levels you're going to be dealing with. So it's going to be very easy to get great reputations and not so great. Okay? So be cautious. All right. Second question. Mr. Writer of music.
My job interview begins my application process for a position in the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District. I would probably say no to that because the job, you need to prepare first of all, for the job interview, but way in advance, like even here I'm doing preparation for my job or my potential future career. So
you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's false. The application process is just a piece of that. And as I was saying in the last response, be careful about how you complete those, because we get 40, 50, 60 applications for every job. So I'll let that soak in for a second. So when those applications come into HR, and that's where they come in human resources, our task, the task of the people working there, are to screen the applications so that principals and committees who get a chance to look at them don't have to look at 40 or 50. Yes.
Now, is it an online application?
Mm-hmm. It is.
So do you have a computer program that screens for certain keywords?
We do not.
Okay. Because I know like the state does.
Yeah, and we could. We chose not to.
Okay.
Because we have adequate staff right now. We may have to go to that. Yeah. That people can get them, actually look at them, and give some latitude based on what the applicant is saying. And yes.
For the application, are you turning in a resume that you've created with the application, or is it just the questions that are on the application that you're turning in?
Good question. It's an AppleTrack, and if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend you go in and just kind of look through it. It's an application that allows you to scan in all of your other things, your resume. If you just put in a resume, we're not going to consider it. Okay? I was at a job fair this past weekend in Seattle, and the people said, well, I have a resume here. Do you want to take it? I said, no, I really don't. I want you to go online, and I want you to apply at our website. Then I'll get a chance to see your resume, your references, all of those things that you have. Then I'll get a chance to actually examine it and weigh it. Mm-hmm. And so when those 40 or 50 applications come in through AppleTrack, someone in my office is responsible for taking those and getting people to the next stage who are minimally qualified. And the agreement we have with FEA describes what FEA, the Fairbanks Education Association, is the union. And the union and the district work hand in hand in many of these processes. This one is described in the bargain agreement, the contract with the union, how we do it in effect. So they have to be minimally qualified, which means they have to have a degree, and they have to have the proper highly qualifiedness, and they have to have been to an institution with an institutional recommendation, and they have to be able to get a certificate or either have a certificate from the state. So if you have those things, then you go into the category of minimally qualified. Okay? Then that reduces it to 20. So what do we do next? How do we get to 5? Anybody?
Experience.
Experience counts. Exactly. But if you're just coming out of college, what do we look at then? Yes.
The reference letters?
We could. What else do we look at?
Academic record.
Say again?
The academic record.
Yeah. You know, generally, if you pass a university, when I'm reviewing, I generally don't go there. I see the 3.85s and the, and the 2.62s, and that'll give me a little pause. But but I don't always go there first. What I look for is experience in other stuff. So yes, you just got out of college. You can't be penalized for that. But what else have you done in your 22 years or whatever the number you have? Have you volunteered for stuff? If you have, we want to know it. And where did we get that? From your application and your resume. Right. So if there's an opportunity to put it into the application, do, because we don't always get to the resume. Because if you have 40, and the contract says when the job is posted and people apply, we have 5 days to do that process and get it to the committee. It's not a very long time, and it's by design. It makes sense to do that. So people, because when principals and other hiring committees say they need someone, they need them right then. It's not always the case that we're doing it now for August. So the contract provides that we do it quickly and thoroughly. So yeah, so put it in your application, what you've done. I was the choir director for my local church back in Milwaukee. I was in the marching band for 2 years and blah, blah, blah. I sold Girl Scout cookies for 5 years and was the state Girl Scout cookie seller. I mean, whatever it was. Because it all indicates sort of the kind of person you are. And principals primarily are looking for people who can be engaging and who've done things that they can bring to the classroom. Content, of course, but also other things, okay? All right, third question. Who's volunteering? Ellen, so you got your name down.
I will only have to be concerned about the references I list on my application when applying for a teaching position. I have to disagree.
Okay, why would you disagree?
The first thing that comes to mind is social media, like Facebook and things like that. Really describes who you are, who you're friends with, and all that.
I'm so glad you said that. Are you all using that? Discriminately? Because a lot of employers aren't going there. We haven't, because we don't have a policy on it yet. We're developing one. But they are going to see what you've done on social media, what have you. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're creating yourself. Okay? Yeah, continue. Right. Absolutely that. What else are we going to do at the school district and in the other employer?
Do you look at like other teachers that
Mm-hmm.
have taught you?
We would, yes. We would definitely go back. You put down your 3 best people, and we're going to talk with them, and then we're going to say, well, who else knew Ellen? Who else worked with Ellen that you know of? Oh, well, she worked with Mr. So-and-so, down the hall, she was his blah, blah, blah. So is he still there? Yes. And so we'll call Mr. So-and-so and find out how you were and what you did and what made you special, et cetera, et cetera. Because we're not looking for bad stuff, although bad stuff comes up. We're looking for how to get the list down from 20 to 5 in some way. Now sometimes the principals will say, okay, Clarence, we have 20 left, so I want only people with 5 years experience or more. So you guys are gone, right, for the most part. And then we'll say, no, well, we have a lot of people who last year were interns in music in our school district. And we know that because we talk with the interns from HR every year, so we know who's there, we know where they are, and what they're doing. So I think that's not a good idea, Principal X. Why don't we have at least 2 of those interns interview with you so you get a chance to see what that's like. You can still have your 5-year people, but we want you to put 2 of these new people in that group as well. So you still got to get 8 of you down to 2, right? But that's part of what the district wants because we want to get a look at you. How else do we get a look at you, you think, besides being an intern? You finish your internship, you're looking for a job, you didn't get it, and so you're doing something else now. What else could you do?
Subbing.
Good. It's a very good idea because that puts you into classrooms all over the district and it puts you at different levels. And if you're music, it's a particular great thing because we don't have a plethora of music teachers in our pool at this point. Because we needed a music teacher at full, and we were lucky to have one, but there aren't many there. So getting on the sub list is important, and it's important to do something other than music as well. But music is especially good. Okay. All right, and we're also going to just call people on our own and say, so Doc, you had these in school. Now I know they were all wonderful students. But tell me something special about Ella. Because we're looking for her to go into a difficult 3rd grade class, and is that something she is capable of doing? And I want you to be candid with me. Candid means honest. Right? Okay? So that's how we do it as well. Okay, is this the 4th question? All right, 4th question right here.
As a sophomore, I have plenty of time to make a good impression on my professors.
Great.
I would say it's not really true or false. Like I would say that yes, you still have time to maybe expand on an impression, but I also think first impressions are really important, and the kind of diction and connotation of the wording kind of makes it sound like, oh, I have plenty of time, procrastination, like, whatever, I'll do that later.
And you're right. No, you don't have to get time. you have this time. And what you had was that time, and whatever impression you left there is still there, good or not so good. And you're building on that all of the time. So, and if you're learning and pushing the envelope, which I endorse. I'm not saying which is also good or bad. It's just I endorse that. So just go a little further so I can see what you're capable of or how your mind thinks, because that's really more critical than in like content. I want to know how your brain looks at something and decides to do this, right? Not, okay, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. We could probably have a lot of those people in the 40, but we want the 5. So we want the 5 to be very special and very much on it. Okay? All right. Good answer. No, good answer. All right. I will respond to questions asked when interviewing. Is that a dead giveaway? Is the answer yes or no? I mean, true or false? True and false, right?
Yeah.
Because what?
I don't know. I mean, I would say true just because if you try to avoid a question, I mean, that's you know, no matter how well you think you word it, you're not going to give the, well, I guess there's one question. What flaws do you have? That's one answer.
That's always one of the questions.
Yeah. I guess I don't have a good reason why you wouldn't answer the question.
Well,
except for that
when I
one.
wrote it, I didn't think of avoiding questions. I think I thought of answering the questions only. And I didn't put only in there because I wanted to see what you thought. But when I wrote it, I thought I would respond to the questions asked when interviewing.
Expand.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So what is this? Oh, it's a clef. Is that good? Ron?
In an interview, do you look for thought process?
Yes.
So you're looking for that, how that person deals with situations.
Exactly.
Thought process.
Exactly. So, and I want et cetera. It's a clef, and let me tell you, this might not be exactly on point for you. It might not be the question you were asking me, but let me tell you how clefs came into being. You don't know.
So you want that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You got to expand that because you want to show substance. You want to show that that you can be one of the five. And how you distinguish yourself is by relating your experience to the question that's asked and give an example so that they understand that you understand. Okay? Yeah, that's perfect. So, yes, you respond to the question, and I have, in interviews, they've asked a question, and I think I was in the military, so I think they wanted me to give an answer that said, the mission, I'll do the mission regardless. And that was the answer, because I was going from enlisted to officer, and they wanted to know how I deal with my men, because they were all men, right? Yeah. And they asked the question, and I said, you know, I know what you want me to say. You want me to say that the mission is the most important, but I don't think it is. I think in this instance, the health and well-being of my men is the most important. So that's what I would pay attention to first. And they said, well, let me ask the question a different way. I said, okay, let me hear it. But my response was still the same. Again, ultimately, they understood that, yes, the mission is important, but I have thoughts about it as well. And so I'm not going to be just following the line. I'm going to be able to make my own decisions and implement what needs to happen, but I'll do it in the way that I think is best. And so that's what interviewers want to hear as well. So they have the curriculum that's outlined for what are those little instruments when you're kindergarten, first, second grade? Yes! Yeah.
Not kindergarten.
Oh, not kindergarten?
Not first grade.
Not first?
Not second.
Really?
Not third.
Really?
Trust me on this one, Clarence.
They don't, you don't start that early? I see like my kids, and they're grown now, so my memory is fading. But it seems like they had them for years.
It's an instrument that can strike fear into the heart.
Yes, true. Yeah. So you know what those are. You know what they do, but what the interviewers want to hear is how do they, and the instruments and what you do with them, with the children, how does that develop them for whatever? Right? And that wasn't the question, but that's your thought, and feel free to expand on that. True? Yeah. I mean, people want to hear what that's about. Okay. My responsibility as a student is to pass the course and graduate. No? Anything more? What else you think?
I think everyone here is in the same boat that there's a little more to it than that. We're at this lecture.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's good. You know, part of the responsibility for us as citizens is to make our community better. And I think you do that with the profession you've chosen, but how you do it is important as well. You know, if you do it from 7:15 to 2:45 in a high school, and then that's it, that's probably, and I'm sure you wouldn't do that, but that's probably not enough. I mean, because you're talented, and there are those of us who love music and aren't talented. So we want to hear, we want to share, we want to be able to. I was someplace today in the boardroom. The kids from the Bridge program, that's the adults with disabilities, are were having something, and some of them were playing music in the boardroom with the piano and drums and stuff. And I totally enjoyed it, and they totally enjoyed doing it. So expanding yourself and sharing. Debbie was on my staff for years in HR, and she played in the community band. She played a French horn, gorgeous, gorgeous instrument. Wish I could play it. Just one of the best, I think, around. So yeah, so you have to spread yourself, okay? So you all get A's. So, what questions do you have about process and stuff?
I guess I kind of wonder, as far as degrees go, one of the things that I've been thinking about is it more beneficial for me to become a teacher right out of college, or is it more beneficial for me to go on and continue my education right out of college?
Yes, both.
Okay.
No, it is. I mean, if you want to get right into it and get started, we appreciate seasoning, but we also appreciate fresh. You know, you're here, you're new. Let's get some of those theories and practices and thoughts you have kind of out there immediately. And, you know, we have a great university here. You can continue to go to college, or you can do it in times other than school time. And at some point, you can take a sabbatical with us. It's 7 years or something. A sabbatical where we'll pay half your salary for that year while you go off and do something and come back.
Oh, wow.
That's something to think about. It's good. So where would you go to grad school? Someplace else?
I have no idea.
No.
They don't have a music education graduate program here.
Not here, no?
No.
Do they have it any place in the state?
State, no.
It's not here.
Yeah, we don't have a med school.
No.
Law school either.
Anchorage has a med school.
Do they?
I think
They have a nursing program.
Nursing program, yeah. I don't think we're large enough for this. I don't think the state's large enough for med school. Law school.
Yeah,
So what else you want to know? The inner workings of school district stuff? Yes, sir.
What does happen if somebody gets a negative reference?
Oftentimes, and I'll give you two examples. Seasoned teachers who come to us from someplace else, primarily the bush areas, sometimes come with references that aren't always complimentary. And so, and we understand in HR that, especially those of us who've been in the bush, that sometimes those situations are taxing. And so we take the reference, but we balance it against other calls that we make, including calls in the community from which that person came to say, okay, well, I heard it says here that Clarence was hard to get along with. And this was said by one of the supervisors. I'm not going to tell you who said that. But give me your impression. Did you ever have an opportunity to work with him or observe him in the classroom? Yes, I did. So what did you observe? Well, I observed that he was working hard, trying to get it done. And there were some people who weren't cooperating, and you know his methods weren't exactly the smoothest trying to work with them. But I thought he did a fairly decent job. So we balanced that off. We balanced it off. And we'll ask you, one of your references said you were hard to get along with. Can you tell me what that was about? Yeah. And we are going to ask you, almost always, tell us a situation where you struggled. So you should have that ready. You should have that response prepared, because it almost always happens. Because we want to know how you deal with things that aren't perfectly laid out and run smoothly. Okay. Yeah, good question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you look at other places that you've worked besides like just odd jobs that you've had?
We do, and I find it interesting. That's one of the reasons probably we don't use keywords to do that, because it's important to kind of round the person out, especially if you have so many applicants, you're trying to reduce the numbers. Oh, I see this person had a Girl Scout troop back in, when they were in college. So that says to me, as the HR director, that this person works well with children. That would suggest that. And then I called the Girl Scout leader and say, well, how was Ellen? She did this for a couple of years. What did the kids think of her? Right?
Do you take into consideration at all where a person is from? Like, are people locally, do they have any more weight than people maybe who are coming in from out of state?
I'm smiling because I didn't think you were young and impressionable. I'll tell you what I actually think, but no.
Tell me I'm not young.
No, I usually say, well, I have a bias because I'm Southern, and I like Southern people. So, yeah, I think I try not to have a bias, but I probably do. But in screenings, I don't. Because Southern people. Anyone here Southern besides me? Yeah, Southern people know what we know what we're talking about when we say what we say, right?
I'm going to refrain. I still have to work in this district a couple more years.
No, but we don't look at that. I think in years past, and these were the rumors when I arrived, there was the impression here at the university that we didn't want to hire people from here. And that was absolutely wrong. I know it was wrong. And what we did in HR was develop a community roundtable, HR roundtable of people from the community to say, okay, this impression is out here, so how can we work to make that, to neutralize that? And they gave us some suggestions that we took. And one of them was, do more with the university. Make yourselves more available, initiate some things that involve the university, get in touch with the Department of Education and talk with them on a regular basis. And don't be, just because you have to drive up the hill doesn't mean you can't come. You don't have to be downtown. You can, and so we did. We created a good relationship with the School of Education and with music, and it works better. So I think that impression is no longer prevalent. And we meet every year with the interns, and the interns are in our schools, and so they get a chance to meet us as well. So it works. What else do you think?
I have a question. In Reg Ed, the people who do their the interns are in the schools for quite a bit of time. Is it a year?
Semester for these guys, I'm told.
Yeah. With music people, it's a semester, and that semester has to be divided between secondary and elementary. Does that put the music people at any kind of a disadvantage?
It does. Well, one, they don't have as much time in the schools. It might be worthwhile, as these students from Atlanta were, they did extern. So they started going their junior year into the schools on a regular basis. And I don't know if your program allows that, but that's something worthwhile, because if you're only going to have 6 months, everyone else has a year. So they're going to have more experience dealing with classroom things, with the politics of the schools themselves, what happens actually here today, in the day. So you might want to think about that as trying to get that work. It wouldn't, I don't know if the music teachers would object to it, but it should be worthwhile. Yeah, good idea. So, and you can work that out. You can start with HR. You can start with assistant superintendents. Roxa is open to all kinds of great ideas. She's elementary, and Karen is good with high school. And maybe elementary is easier to do it in than high school. I don't know, but that's my suspicion. Okay, sure. And I have 18 more days. You can come and talk to me.
But you're not.
I'm not. That's true. I'm getting behind. I know in my part of Georgia, they've already plowed up the fields and they're planting stuff. And so I'm here twitching because I won't get there until May. And so people's corn will already be coming up, and I'll be behind. I'll get over it, maybe.
Just think of us when it's.
Yeah.
We feel real bad.
Yeah, right. Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on the interview process when the interview is sort of done and then the panel says, do you have any questions for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they always do. So what we prefer to hear is, not strike. What we don't want to hear is, okay, what's the salary and when am I going to get it? That's not what we want to hear. We'd like to hear things like, well, if you were making a choice for one music person, tell me some things you'd be looking for, of the panel. And then, if the panel says, what I'm looking for is this and this and this, and you could say after that, because you forgot to say that, and you had this, oh, I'm so glad you said that. If I could add one more thing to my interview, I know my time is up, so just let me add one more piece. I had some experience in that, and I failed to mention it, so thank you for saying that. And thank yous are always good. They'll let you get away with all kinds of things, so thank you, and I appreciate it.
Was that a written?
I mean, you mean...
Are written letters of thanks appropriate?
Oh, yeah. And you think that's normal, but it isn't. You get one from a group of 7 who we interviewed. Thank you very much for the interview. Please let me know if I can improve in anything that I did during the interview, etc. That's always good.
Okay.
Always a plus.
Is it appropriate to ask when a decision is expected?
I see where you have interviews going today with me. Do you have other interviews? Yes, we do. Do you have some idea when you might make a decision? In more words than a few. Do you see how many words I use to ask that question? That's civil. Okay? Yeah. It's not a 2-word question. It's more. Because you say the other stuff ahead of time. And that's what I mean when I say Southern. So when people are asking me things that are difficult, even in this job, well, I'm Southern, so I'll take a little longer. So let me think about that. And I do. And they will. Right? So use whatever you think you have as an advantage when you're doing these things. That's a very good question you raised. I really hadn't considered it, but could I take a few minutes, a few seconds, and take them, and then come out with something that's different and impressive.